What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be comparing Tom Brady and Drew Brees' throwing mechanics, okay? We're going to be talking about how quarterbacks all throw it differently, right? Everybody's got different mechanics somehow. Not two people throw the ball the exact same. We're going to talk about the key similarities between these two, which makes them elite passers, and how you can use these similarities to help your game improve, all right? And guys, if you're a quarterback and you want to get better at reading coverages, you want to be able to understand defenses, know what the defense is going to do before they do it, check out that link in the description. It says how to read defenses. We break down 150 plus already made, ready to go videos. You guys will have immediate access upon signing up to those 150 videos, plus 4 new videos every single week on how to read coverages. We break down NFL defenses, just like how I draw on the screen with these breakdowns. We break down coverages and how you guys can read those coverages. Check out that link in the description. It's how to read defenses. Hope to get you guys on that. All right, let's get started. So first thing we're going to talk about is base and hip drive and foot strike. Those are the 3 points that I want to get across. And, again, everybody knows that Drew Brees has got kind of this quicker short arm motion, right? And he's got that nice wide base. And Brady's got a little bit longer of a motion, but he doesn't take it back to that perfect L, right? Or he doesn't have a slow motion, but it's longer than Brees' obviously. So let's watch this first clip full speed, and you see how Brees is able to keep that nice wide base, which equates to a quick foot strike, but that doesn't equate necessarily to a quick release, right? So you see how he's here, and I know it's kind of tough to see at a certain angle, but you see how his base, where's his feet? They're just outside of his shoulders, right? And especially being a short guy, 6 foot, right? I mean, I would like to be 6 foot because that would help, but being under 6'2", this is how you're going to have to play the game, right? You're going to have to be able to play in a strong base. You're going to be able to have to navigate, make off platform throws, and get the ball out of your hands quick. That's why Brees is elite. He plays in the pocket differently. Russell Wilson plays in the pocket differently. And like Kyler Murray plays in the pocket differently than guys like Brady would, or taller dudes like Big Ben, whoever. They play the game differently, right? But mechanically, they got to be tight. They got to have some of the best mechanics that you can have, because that makes them more efficient as a shorter guy. So you see how he's able to get that quick foot strike, right? Now, when we're able to strike the ground fast like this, and you see how the foot strike kind of goes, it's almost like a negative foot strike. It's going backwards almost. This is just because he's throwing with touch and he's trying to get those hips to go up and over, right? Now, when he drives here, the quicker you get that down, everybody loves to say the quicker you get that down, the quicker the release is. Not 100% true if you don't drive your hips, right? You see guys all the time, they keep their hips. They'll strike the ground fast, but they keep their hips pointed towards, like if we're throwing straight ahead, they'll keep their hips pointed towards the sideline. If you keep your hips pointed towards the sideline, you're not rotating through, and then your shoulders are going to rotate through, and it's improper sequence. The sequence you want is you want feet, then hips, then shoulders, then the football, right? It's not just all throwing with your arm, and you just leave this thing out in front of you, and your shoulders go before your hips, right? You're able to get that front foot down. You're able to let that back hip come through, and that back hip's coming up and over, and the football is trailing the back hip, right? They call it chasing the hip. That's what a lot of people like to call that thing. Essentially, that means just get your hip through before the football comes through, because that's how you can generate torque, and keeping your front side closed. We're going to get to that later in the last 2 clips that I'm going to show. That helps with torque, right? So you see how he's able to get a quick front strike. He's able to drive those hips up and over, and then that's all he is just flicking that wrist. If you could throw this thing with your body, if you could get leg drive, if you get a quick stride, you get your hips through. It's just your arms along for the ride, okay? Let's watch this thing full speed one more time. Now we're going to take a look at Tom's throwing motion. We're going to talk about a lot of the key similarities between the two, right? So now, you see Tom here, when he takes this thing back, he doesn't necessarily flip this ball like to get to this perfect L angle like Brees does. Brees has a great backstroke. It's nice and tight. It's nice and quick. It's not as much as extended, I would say, than Brady's, but he gets that wrist to turn over. He gets that ball like level. He has that like opposite equal, or not, I wouldn't call it opposite equal, because you get opposite equal without this, but he gets to that like perfect L, right? Brady doesn't get to that perfect L. So that shows you that you don't have to get to that perfect L angle. A lot of people think that you must perfect L. You must go L to L, 90 to 90 every single time. That's not necessarily 100% true. You just got to make sure that we're able to separate my hip drive from my shoulder drive. We're able to close my shoulder as my front foot's getting down. So again, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that base. You see how he's here. The Brady, you can see when he's getting set to make this throw, where's that back foot? Back foot's just outside of his shoulder, because that creates the quick front strike. When you push off of the back leg, you see how he's pushing this way as his shoulders are pushing back the opposite way. He's got that that dissociation that everybody loves to talk about, the separation between hips and shoulders. When you get that front foot down right now, you see how quick his foot strike is. That allows your hips to come through. That's the problem, again, like we were talking about with Breeze. We talked about the perfect sequence. That's the problem with a lot of quarterbacks, is that they'll be here, they'll have a little bit, I wouldn't even call it an overstride. I hate the term overstride because it's just poor timing, right? It's poor timing of the sequence. I wouldn't call it an overstride, because if you got a little bit, let's say you have a slow front stride, it's going to be the same result, right? Because your shoulders are going to come through before your hips do. And if your front foot doesn't get down fast, and it doesn't get down while your shoulder is somewhat closed, or I would say quiet's the better term, because you don't have to keep it completely closed and almost over rotate, but you got to keep it quiet. You don't want your shoulder to be swinging out and swinging open as your front foot's hitting the ground, because then you're going to have no torque. Torque comes from this hip drive, being able to rotate and open up that front hip as well, while letting the ball just swing nice and easy through, and you keep that front side tight. And we're going to talk about that in a second, but that's the lower half mechanics that we got to shoot for. Nice wide, I'm not saying be super wide, right? Feet just outside your shoulders, pushing off the back leg, front foot gets down, and your hips swing that ball through. Now we're going to be talking about what they have similarly with their upper half, right? And now the reason why I point out these key things, and the reason behind this video, is because so many people think that, there's only one way to throw the ball. That's not true. A lot of people throw this thing differently than others, right? No two throwing motions are the exact same, but these are the key points that are going to make you a more efficient passer. That's the whole reason you study film. That's the whole reason I break down film for you guys, because you guys got to be able to understand these key points, so you know, okay, that's why he does this. That's why all these quarterbacks do this, right? And now we're going to be talking about the upper half, which is something that you see a lot of guys have. But again, when you get a quick foot strike, let those hips shoot everything through. So now, let's watch this clip. This is a really good throw here by Breeze from training camp this year. So main thing is when we decide to rotate through my hips, right? It's about tying it all together, and everything's connected, because if you don't have the correct foot strike, you don't have the correct hip drive, this doesn't really matter, right? This is something I would teach secondary to that. I would focus on foot strike and hip drive first. So now let's assume that you have the correct foot strike. Let's assume that you're driving with your hips. How you're able to get torque, right? As you see again, what does Breeze do? He keeps that front shoulder nice and closed, and this is the L angle I was talking about previously right here that he gets to. You don't have to get to that perfect L. Works for Breeze, works for him, right? But if some guys it might work better for them. All I want is you guys just not to drop it too low down here and then lift straight to 90. If you lift the ball up straight to 90 in proper sequence, if you don't have a backstroke, your hip drive is going to bring it through. You're either going to have your shoulders come through first, or that ball is going to dip behind your head. So this is a pretty good job with this backstroke. Now you see how it says hips, right? His hip is coming through before the ball, and he's got such a quick hip drive because he's got such a quick motion. But I want you to see how level he finishes with his shoulders and where his hips are, because you want to think of your upper half as a square. So when you finish to a target, like I'm throwing to something straight ahead, I don't want, like, let's say I'm a righty, right? Let's say the target's in front of me, I'm left shoulders on the target. I don't want to finish with my left shoulder pointing to the opposite end zone, to where my right shoulder was. I want my left shoulder finishing square to him. I don't want to be. And the thing is about this is you got to be able to rotate with your hips, because if you do this and you don't have enough hip rotation, it's going to feel like you're just short arming it. You're not rotating at all. So this is one of the more tricky things for guys to get. But if you have great hip drive, you're going to start getting that twitchiness to the motion. You're going to start snapping this ball off your hand, right? So again, you see how when Breeze is here, he stays square, because that doesn't affect the arm slot. That's why it's important. Number one, it's for torque, but also it doesn't affect your accuracy in this arm slot, because you see how he's got this almost perfect 90. Again, we go back to that 90-degree angle, right? It doesn't have to be a perfect 90, but you see how he's here. His arm slot is not outside of his frame, and it's not pushed up high, because he does not swing that front hand. And we're going to take a look at Brady's throw in a second too. He doesn't swing that front hand wide, because here's the deal. If you swing your shoulder open, and like I said, you don't want it to end up behind you, you let your arm fly, because you separate. Your body's split down a midline. You swing your front shoulder out, your arm's going to get pushed, and you're going to almost come across your body. That's how you miss left to right. And then a lot of guys like to swing their elbow down, and they dip their shoulder and dip their head, and that will push that ball up and high outside their frame. So you're either going to miss high or you're going to miss low if you release late, because you're coming down like a pitcher. So again, you want to keep that front hand somewhere in front of your face like you're eating a sandwich, shoulders level, hips level, and then trust your hands. You want to make sure that we extend at the target, because that's where your accuracy comes from. Great job here by Breeze. Let's watch this thing full speed one more time. So again, close that shoulder. Hip drive is good. You just got to make sure we stay square. Okay, so now let's look at Brady here. Same idea that we're going to talk about. He's got a very unique front arm because he kind of finishes almost like by his opposite collarbone, which is very, very, very unique. But you see how somewhat, and again, I'm realistic, guys. I know that shoulder's not going to be freaking perfectly straight every single time. It can rotate open a little bit more. Like I said, there's not one way to throw a ball, but these are some of the key things. As long as you don't swing it open and only rotate with your shoulders, and you end up with that left shoulder finishing behind you, so you finish with your right shoulder on the target because of that left shoulder, that's the problem. You do want to finish with that right shoulder on the target. You see Brady here, he finishes with that right shoulder on the target, but it's not because his left shoulder ended up on the opposite side, right? He stayed relatively square to this thing and kept his hips level. That's what I'm talking about with that square. So now let's break this thing down. So again, he's got great foot strike. You see that front hip starting to open up, and that's what swings his upper half through. And right, he's in that backstroke here, not a perfect L like we were talking about. Front shoulder is closed. Now, his hips rotating through his torque, but how he loses that torque is if he swings that shoulder open. When you swing that shoulder open, what happens to the ball? Imagine if he was here and this hand didn't stay tight to his frame and he kept swinging that shoulder out. His arm would be pushed outside of his frame like I was talking about. But again, look at that position, look at that arm slot that he has, because he keeps that hand nice and tight. He keeps this hand nice and tight to his face, so he's got a clean arm slot here. And he keeps his shoulders level, he keeps those hips level, he's in that square like I was talking about, and it's the same thing. You want to extend at the target, okay? That's how we keep my accuracy. That's how I'm able to keep torque, and that wrist flick is just the icing on the cake, right? So these are some of the key things that you guys got to be able to do with your upper half mechanics to be a more efficient pass. Let's watch this one full speed again one more time. Great job here by Brady, staying square, keeping that hand by his face, and extending on the follow through. All right, guys, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope this video kind of gave you some insight on what elite passers have in common while they all throw this thing differently. Aaron Rodgers is a great guy to look at for this too as well. A lot of these guys, a lot of these top passers in the league all had these similar motions. Look at Patrick Mahomes, very similar with his upper half mechanics to these guys. Great guys that you can study, okay? And guys, again, if you're a receiver, or if you're a quarterback, if you're a quarterback and you want to improve your reading coverage's ability, check out that link in the description. Be able to read defenses, 150 plus already made breakdowns. You get access once you sign up, and then 4 new ones every single week for however long we continue to do this. And then also, guys, if you got any questions, leave those in the comments. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I'll see you guys next time.